I walked in on my dad whispering something I wasn't supposed to hear. My name. My brother's name. And the house my mom always said was mine. My stomach dropped. Something was off. Way off. My girlfriend had been acting strange for weeks, locking her phone, staying out late, picking fights over nothing. I thought she was just stressed. I thought we were okay. I thought I knew who had my back. But then my father said something I still hear in my sleep. That was the moment everything snapped. And it was already too late to stop what they'd done. I always figured if you stayed solid, did the right thing, showed up, didn't screw people over, life would eventually come around for you. Maybe not fast, maybe not loud, but quietly, in the way things lined up. That's what I believed. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't the risk taker in the family. That was Kyle. I was the one who held the line. For the past 6 years, I lived with Lena. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were safe. We had our rhythms. Grocery runs on Sundays, fights about dishes, quiet nights with takeout and old shows. It wasn't exciting anymore, but it was ours. And I genuinely thought we were building something. I talked about getting engaged last fall. She didn't jump at it, but she didn't say no either. Said, let's see how the next year goes. I figured that meant something like stability. Growth. I didn't expect betrayal. Especially not from two of the people closest to me. My mom passed 4 years ago. Fast and brutal. I was the one who sat with her most days toward the end. My dad was around, but emotionally checked out. Kyle visited once, maybe twice. But I didn't resent him for it, not then. That's just who he was. Restless. Detached. Charming when it counted. He was always good at the big, visible moments. Never the hard stuff in between. After she was gone, I started going to her house more often. To fix things. Keep it from falling apart. I repainted the back deck, replaced the gutters, kept the yard clean. My dad never officially gave it to me, but it was always just understood. My mom and I had talked about it so many times growing up. She'd say, when I'm gone, I want you to have this place. You're the one who sees it for what it is. I clung to that. To her voice in my head. I didn't push for paperwork, because I trusted the unspoken things. Family doesn't need to draw lines in ink when the lines are written in loyalty. Or at least, that's what I told myself. Kyle lived 2 towns over. We weren't close. We texted a few times a month, usually about birthdays or dad stuff. He didn't like Lena. Said she was too serious, or kind of cold. I thought it was just his way of poking at me. He always did like stirring the pot. But they barely interacted at family things. Lena kept to herself. Kyle would breeze in, charm everyone, and disappear. I should have noticed something. The way she'd ask about him sometimes, like offhand, but too specific. Did Kyle ever finish that remodeling job? Is Kyle still dating that girl from the bar? Once, I caught her smiling at something on her phone, and when I asked, she said it was a meme Kyle had sent. She passed it off like it was no big deal. I didn't press. Looking back, there were cracks I stepped over like floorboards I'd grown used to. And then came the moment everything snapped. It was a Saturday. I was at my dad's, helping him clear out the garage. We'd been sorting through old boxes, mostly junk, and he was half talking, half grumbling the way he does when he's trying to make conversation but doesn't really want to be having one. I was lifting a busted lawn chair out of the corner when he said it. Casual. Like he was commenting on the weather. It's only fair now that a baby's involved, maybe your brother should have the house. I froze, still crouched halfway to standing, that cracked plastic chair dangling from my hands. My brain stalled. I didn't say anything. I just stared at him. He didn't look up. Just moved on like nothing seismic had just left his mouth. But my ears rang. And my stomach dropped. I had no idea what he meant. But somehow, deep down, I already did. Fade to black. I didn't ask him to explain. I just left. Told him I had somewhere to be and got in my truck like my body was moving on muscle memory, not direction. I drove for maybe 10 minutes before I pulled into an empty church parking lot and sat there with the engine running, hands on the wheel, replaying his words over and over. It's only fair now that a baby's involved. A baby? And Kyle? And the house? Nothing added up. But the nausea blooming in my chest said otherwise. Something was wrong. Something real. Something already happening behind my back. That night, Lena was quieter than usual. She didn't ask how the day went. Just poured herself a glass of wine and curled up on the couch with her phone. I watched her scroll. She angled the screen away when I got close, like she always did lately. And that small, stupid motion hit me like a punch I'd seen coming for years. I barely slept. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling, feeling the inches between our bodies like miles. The next morning, she left early for a brunch with Mia. No invite. No details. Just gone before I even had coffee. I couldn't let it go. I went looking. I didn't want to be that guy, the one snooping through messages, second-guessing everything. But I already wasn't myself anymore. That version of me cracked the second my dad dropped that line. Lena's iPad was synced to her phone. She never thought about it. I don't think she even remembered. I opened it, hands shaking, not even sure what I expected to find. What I found made my throat close. There were texts from Kyle. Long ones. Flirty ones. Intimate in a way that wasn't new. This wasn't something that had just happened. This had been happening. 4 months. She'd called him you-know-who in her saved contact list. But he wasn't even trying to be careful. There were messages from his end that made it unmistakable. Stuff like, "Are you sure it's mine?" and "You should have told him already." There was one that gutted me more than the rest. "He doesn't need to know until we figure things out. Just act normal. Act normal." I closed the app. I sat there, silent. My hands went numb. I didn't even cry. Not yet. I just shut down. When she came home that night, I couldn't look at her. I didn't even try. She kissed my cheek, called me babe, and asked if I wanted Thai or Mexican for dinner. I asked her, calmly, without turning my head, "Are you pregnant?" The silence that followed was worse than any scream. She didn't answer right away. I turned and looked her in the face. Her lips parted. Her eyes blinked like she was deciding what version of the truth might hurt least. I said, "Don't lie to me." She sat down across from me. Said my name like it physically hurt her. And then she started crying. She said it happened once. Then, maybe a few times. She wasn't sure how to explain it. "It just happened," was her first excuse. "We were drinking," was her second. I asked if she loved him. She didn't answer. That told me everything. She said she found out she was pregnant a few weeks ago. She said she panicked. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to hurt me. I asked, "Were you ever going to tell me?" She looked down. Whispered, "No. I don't remember standing up. I just remember the front door slamming behind me and the cold air smacking my face like I deserved it. I drove aimlessly. Ended up crashing on my friend Eric's couch. I didn't tell him why. Just said it was relationship stuff. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a blanket and said, 'You can stay as long as you need.'" At 1:23 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was my dad. No greeting. No preamble. Just, "We're moving forward with the house. Kyle's got a baby on the way. He needs the stability. You understand." I stared at the screen like it was a foreign language. I read it 3 times, waiting for it to change. Then I put the phone face down and lay there in the dark, wondering how many times someone could get gutted by the same people before it stopped surprising you. Apparently, I hadn't hit that number yet. I didn't sleep much the next few nights. Not real sleep. Just these flashes of memory that wouldn't leave me alone. The house. Lena's face. That text. My dad's voice saying, "You understand," like what he was doing made perfect sense. I waited a day before responding. I thought maybe he'd realize how insane that message was and call back with an apology, or at least some kind of explanation. But he didn't. So I texted him, "We need to talk. In person." He didn't even reply. Just sent back a thumbs up emoji. When I got there, he was out in the yard trimming hedges like it was any other day. Didn't look up when I pulled in. Just said, "You hungry? There's leftover lasagna." I said no. He wiped his hands on a rag and finally looked at me. I asked him point blank, "Why are you giving Kyle the house?" He didn't flinch. Just nodded toward the porch like we were gonna have a civil chat about it over coffee. He sat down and let out a long, heavy sigh. "You've got a good head on your shoulders," he said. "You'll land on your feet. But Kyle's got a family to think about now. That changes things." I felt something tighten in my jaw. "It doesn't change what Mom wanted." He leaned back, arms crossed. "Your mother never put it in writing. She talked a lot. Said a lot of things when she was sick. But Kyle's starting fresh. You've got time." That's when I knew. It was already done. The decision. The transfer. Everything. I asked him if he even cared what Lena did. What Kyle did. He waved it off. "Relationships are messy. People make mistakes. Don't throw your life away over this. That sounded so familiar it stopped me cold. You always say that, I said. You said that when Kyle crashed Mom's car and lied about it. When he stole from my wallet in high school. Every time he screws up, you say it's not worth making a scene. He looked irritated now. Why are you digging up the past? Because it wasn't the past. Not really. It was the same script, just new actors. Or maybe the same ones in different roles. I thought of Lena's words when I confronted her. You always take everything so personally. That was him. That was his line. She'd used it almost word for word. I left without another word. The next day, Kyle called. I almost didn't pick up. But some part of me needed to hear how he was gonna spin it. He started with a sigh. Not an apology. A sigh. Like I had made his life more complicated by not taking this well enough. I didn't mean for it to happen, he said. It was just one of those things. We got close, it got blurry. I said nothing. He filled the silence. Look, I know it looks bad. But Lena and I didn't plan this. It just evolved. And now she's pregnant, so we have to deal with it. I didn't come into this trying to hurt you, man. That last part lit something in me. I said, you did hurt me. He paused. I mean, yeah, but I didn't mean it like that. The same hollow shrug of an apology he used when we were teenagers, and he'd break my stuff, lie to my face, then cry to Dad until I had to say sorry for making a big deal out of it. I told him I needed time. He said he understood. Said he hoped we could still be family. That the baby should have everyone in their life. When I hung up, I realized I was shaking. Not from sadness, rage. The kind that builds slow. The kind that doesn't scream or punch walls. It just simmers under your skin until your own body feels like it's rejecting you. I spent the next week in a fog. I went to work. Ate just enough to not pass out. My friend Eric offered to go get my stuff from the apartment, but I couldn't do it yet. It felt too final. Then, one night, I stood outside my mom's house. I looked at the porch light, still burned out because I hadn't replaced it in months. I used to fix every little thing. Now I couldn't even walk inside. I thought about her voice. The way she'd squeeze my shoulder and say, "This place is yours, sweetheart. I trust you with it." She meant it. I know she did. And they were ripping it away from me like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. I didn't have a plan that night. But I knew I wasn't letting them win. Not again. I started with the will. I didn't have much hope. My mom had always been more verbal than official when it came to plans, but I needed to know. I found the last version in a sealed envelope inside the safe deposit box she'd shared with my dad. I had to fight to get access, show ID, wait for signatures. When they handed me the envelope, my hands trembled so bad I almost dropped it. Inside, it was as I feared, no explicit mention of the house. Just a basic, joint assets transfer to my dad, and a few sentimental things assigned to me and Kyle. But tucked between the papers was something else. A handwritten letter, dated 6 months before she was gone. It was addressed to me. She wrote about the house. About how it was always meant to be mine. About how she hoped Dad would respect that, even if it wasn't formal. She said she trusted me to take care of it. To carry forward the spirit of our family. I stared at her handwriting for a long time. That letter wasn't legally binding, but it was real. It was her voice. Her intent. Her truth. And I wasn't going to let them erase it. I contacted a lawyer, a friend of Eric's. She told me it wasn't ironclad, but combined with my ongoing maintenance of the house, my mother's written wishes, and some additional testimony, I could challenge any transfer. Especially if there was reason to believe it was done under false pretenses or emotional coercion. So I started documenting everything. I pulled Lena's texts off the iPad. Screenshots of every message between her and Kyle. Dates. Times. Photos. Her saying, "He still doesn't know." Kyle saying, "You don't have to feel bad. He'll get over it." I printed them all. I compiled emails. Bank records. Even phone logs showing how often they'd been talking behind my back. Then I went through old messages from my mom, texts about the house, about her wanting me to keep it in the family. Anything that proved intention. It wasn't revenge. It was preservation. I didn't storm in guns blazing. I called a meeting. I told Kyle, Lena, and my dad that we needed to talk. All of us. One time. At the house. They agreed, probably thinking I was going to finally make peace. That's how they operate. They wait you out. Let the guilt settle until you fold. But I was done folding. We met on a Saturday. The four of us. I brought a folder. Dad sat at the dining table like he was already tired. Kyle leaned back in the chair, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression he always defaulted to when he felt even a little challenged. Lena wouldn't look me in the eye. I started slowly. Said I had something to show them. Opened the folder. Spread the screenshots across the table. Lena gasped. Tried to pull them back. Kyle muttered, "Are you serious, man?" Dad looked confused, until he read the words. I spoke clearly. I didn't yell. I didn't break. I just laid out the timeline. How long they'd been seeing each other. How long they'd been lying to me. How they manipulated me. And how Dad, maybe unknowingly, had helped them wipe me out of the one thing Mom wanted me to keep. I slid the letter across the table. He read it twice. Slower the second time. Then he looked at me, eyes cloudy. "She gave this to you?" I nodded. 6 months before she was gone. She told me to keep it safe. Just in case. No one spoke for a minute. Then Kyle stood up and shoved the chair back like this was all too dramatic for him. "You're blowing this way out of proportion. What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry." I laughed. I actually laughed. Cold and low. Lena started crying. Real or not, I didn't care anymore. She said, "I never wanted this to happen. I didn't plan to fall for him." I turned to her and said, "You didn't plan anything. You just let it happen and hoped I'd be too spineless to notice." My dad rubbed his forehead. He looked old. For the first time in years, he looked like someone who didn't know what came next. He asked quietly, "So what are you going to do?" I told him I'd be contesting any transfer of the house. That I had legal grounds to at least force a delay. That there'd be hearings, documentation, statements. That if he wanted a fight, I was ready. He looked at me like I'd grown fangs. But he didn't say no. When I left that day, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. I had stood in front of them, finally, and told the truth. Not because I needed them to believe me, but because I needed me to believe I could. The hearing never happened. A few days after that meeting, my dad called. Voice flat, like he was trying to keep it neutral. He said the house would stay in my name, for now. That he wasn't looking to tear the family apart. I didn't respond right away. Just let him sit in the silence he used to fill with instructions and guilt. When I finally spoke, I said, "You already did. You just never wanted to admit it." He hung up after that. We haven't spoken since. Kyle moved back in with my dad for a while. Their plan to move into the house dissolved. I don't know where Lena is staying now. I assume with friends, maybe one of hers from work. She sent me a long message the following week, something between a plea and a justification. She said she missed me. That she didn't realize what she had until she lost it. That what happened with Kyle wasn't real, the way we were real. I read the message once. Then deleted it. I didn't need another performance. I started going back to the house on my own, quietly. At first, I just mowed the lawn and cleared out old boxes. Then I repainted the front door, fixed the porch light, swept the cobwebs from the corners no one else thought to look at. It didn't feel like home. Not yet. But it didn't feel like there's any more either. And that was enough. Eric helped me move a few things in, just a bed, some basics, my mom's old record player. We sat on the floor one night drinking beers, listening to a scratched vinyl of her favorite Fleetwood Mac album. He looked around and said, "You staying?" I nodded. Not because I needed roots. But because I needed to reclaim something that had been slipping through my fingers since the day she was gone. Lena tried again. Once. Showed up at the front gate while I was watering the plants out front. She looked thinner. Pale. Said she wanted to talk. I told her there was nothing left. She said she hoped I'd forgive her someday. I told her forgiveness wasn't mine to give. Not anymore. She left without pushing. Kyle never reached out again. I heard from a cousin that he told people I overreacted and twisted everything. Let him. I'm done correcting the story for people who were never interested in the truth to begin with. Sometimes I still drive past our old apartment, just to remind myself I lived there once. That I built a life in borrowed space with someone who never planned to stay. But when I go home now, I turn a real key in a real door. One that belongs to me. I keep my mom's letter in the top drawer of my nightstand, folded and creased from how many times I've opened it. Her words still anchor me, even in the quiet. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't have some big plan. I'm not out here trying to become someone new. I just stopped letting them decide who I was. They thought I'd stay quiet, like I always did. But silence isn't the same as forgiveness. Not anymore.